by definition, it has to be something universally applicable to keep us all together, or for at least to function as a human society.
For me, it's inherent within us, like a mother's love for its child. It's inherent. She doesn't need to read a holy book to know to love her child.
That's fine.
As a father knows how to instill, morals in his son, or take him hunting or whatever.
That's perfect. But that inherent nature has to manifest itself in some sort of way in which how we govern and live with each other. I.e., that's why we follow the laws of this land, because the laws are based on some sort of rational following of how we understand how to be as humans,
which is developed over thousands of years.
True, but the fact is there is some sort of universal compatibility. So if there is, and we've just acknowledged that there is some sort of creator or some sort of power which has brought us into existence, well, just like nothing can't, your bag doesn't just come into existence. Someone has to go there, get all the thread and make it into something. If there's this fundamental power behind things coming to existence, and then that thing has made us all uniform in some elements in terms of how we govern, how we look at each other, how we live in society, what we find abhorrent, what we find
there
good.
Appear to be laws within nature.
Then fundamentally there must be something, exactly, there has to be some sort of law that can govern us in terms of these things as well, and it has to be by logic and by inference and deduction something that can be applicable to all of humanity. So the first thing is then we're looking at religious scriptures, because they're the only ones that claim that. Then from the religious scriptures, then you have to start deconstructing each of those individually and then see again what according to rationality and logic.
So where you said the Old Testament was written down and copied, that doesn't apply to the Quran. Why? Because when you copy stuff, you can skip lines sometimes, errors creep in, and some scribes, Bar Ehrman's written a good book about, I think it's called Misquoting Jesus, in which he obviously compiles these things. When the Bible was written, how mistakes crept in, how scribes entered interpolations. That's why they needed the Council of Nicaea to rationalize the Holy Spirit and other things as well. But with the Quran, it's different. The Quran is the only holy book that has been mass memorized. So that's a form of it being preserved that we can discuss and prove right here, right now. The Bible has not been mass memorized. That's why today, even if you take two versions of the Bible from two different denominations, Roman Catholic Bible, you can take a Protestant Bible, you will see there's entire paragraphs missing. However, when it comes to the Quran, whether it's a Shia book, whether it's a Sunni book, whether it's of another denomination, all the books are identical. They're absolutely the same.
It doesn't mean the content is necessarily from God.
It doesn't. But what I'm saying is,
it's been very ingenious, and have managed to do that. And the claim is that they've managed to do it. Now, how true that is, I don't know. You can say it's true. How do I know?
Okay. But one thing is, you're saying about empirical evidence, right? That we've come to is our own reason, our own rationality, our own improvements and advancement of humanity that has made us the society that we have. Yeah. So you're saying it's very much our own stuff. It's not necessarily from God that we have these innate abilities.
Everything is God in a sense, you can say, on one level. This is, this is it. This is the great existence.
That's fine. But then if you're talking about empiricism and the five senses, someone that's, for example, a psychopath, like they've got a neurosis, for that person in their world, killing or murder might be perfectly fine. Now for you to then superimpose, say, well, actually, no, there's a moral standard that's set outside of your understanding of the world, they could argue the same things that you're arguing. Well, according to me, in his psychopathic way, murder and killing is okay. But according to his five senses and his empirical understanding, what he's doing is correct. So you have to have some sort of external, objective applicability to people's behavior.
I hear that. I hear that.
So when you say we've done this and we've achieved this and it's us and this is it.
I hear that, but if Islam is the benchmark, it's very late in the game. It's very late in the game.
No, it's not.
Well, okay, hang on.
Oh, sorry.
But like our ancestors, they could be brutal to each other, but within their communities they had an understanding and a cohesion, and they had laws and morals and ethics, and it went on for. If you take the anthropological idea, Homo sapiens have been around 200,000 years. Okay, so it's been a very long development, and then Islam is just a blink of an eye at the end, really, for me. And it's not. There's nothing in it that hasn't been thought of before. There's nothing new about morals or don't do this and don't do that. You see, the Sermon on the Mount, Christianity does that. The Exodus is full of these laws. And they didn't just come out. They say they come down from the Mount, but other cultures have laws. And
actually, Islam gives an answer for that. When you say Islam came at the end, it's not. Islam is actually the accumulation of all of these previous laws from these other religions. So it's actually progressive. It's not saying that came with just one prophet, with one man. We believe in Jesus and Moses and David.
Yes.
And you know,
But
even
it's not just the Middle East, though. You know, existence isn't just in the Middle East from Abrahamic religion.
Islam never claims that.
No, I know, but it's very idiocentric.
Alex, that's because the three main religions that we know are Abrahamic, and they happen to come from the Middle East.
Yes, but there's lots of other religions.
There's been approximately 124,000 prophets that have come, and it's not all in the Middle East. It's just the last three prophets that we know of today, the Prophet Muhammad, Jesus, and Moses.
I get it.
But that's like it's come at the end. But coming back to the Quran thing, so if, for example, we acknowledge that the Quran is something that, okay, God said He would preserve it. 1400 years have passed. No one has been able to change it. Yes, books have been burned. This has been done. That's been done. It hasn't been changed. Okay, that's the first premise. That's worked out. Number two, the Quran poses this as a challenge. It's called the inimitability challenge. I think I butchered the pronunciation.
I've had trouble with my words today.
Yeah, inimitability challenge.
Okay, well done.
I think I flopped it again. So
You're right to me.
yeah, so what that is the Quran is challenging people that if you believe that this is not from God, then find and come with a verse that's like it. Now, bear in mind, the Quran was revealed in Arabia. There were Arabic speaking geniuses at that time. Yet, nobody was able to materialize a verse that could contradict this. For them, it would have been easy. The verse comes down, boom, let's contradict it. Boom, Islam over, finished.
It contradicts it
In terms of challenge it.
or to come up with something similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what I've read of the Quran, I hear people say you should read it in Arabic. I don't see anything that magnificent in the language or anything. It's of the time. I mean, I read some. You know, if you read some of the Gnostic Gospels, there's great poetry in there and great concepts of God.
That's because Alex is in English. In Arabic, that's why the person told you.
Going to learn Arabic.
I know, but what I'm saying is,
with respect, the world is not going to become Islamic. Islam will remain. The world will there's always going to be diversity, and that's how it is. You know,
and that's fine, but in fact the Arabic language of the Quran, the reason why it's been revealed in that language is because of the fact that in itself is a means of protection of the Quran. Because all other languages are not as deep as Arabic is in terms of very bespoke words, because there are many different forms of the same thing.
Again, this is...
And that's just a means of protection, not a means of marginalizing anyone from
Mandarin or, against Arabic. It's going to be completely different conceptually. It's going to be like a different animal. So it's very hard to compare languages. They have different, the Chinese have different ways of understanding sounds and pictograms, and they think in different
They do, yeah.
Different. It's very difficult to say this is the ultimate language of God.
But Alex, when there's a claim...
I understand it points you to God and gives you a connection with God, but
Alex,
I can argue with that, right? And what we're asking is why hasn't it clicked with me? Because I just don't see it as an ultimate expression of the divine. You are. I see you guys as the ultimate, because look, you are the flesh, right? The light made flesh or whatever. This is the real book. We're in it, right? And the Quran for me is a sort of attempt to understand that, or a reflection of that. Maybe I am totally wrong, but that's how I see it. So I find it hard to then let go of all this and just go, oh, the Quran.
Yeah. The thing is,
there's poetry in it.
The thing with the Quran, when it comes to Arabic, the thing is, if we're making the claim that God has selected this language, Arabic, we can give you other examples like Arabic from the other scriptures, like you've got Hebrew of the Old Testament. You've got Greek of the New Testament, Then you've got Arabic. Arabic, in comparison to the others, is mostly is more spoken, more literature, blah blah blah. However, if you're now saying Chinese, and you're saying Chinese, let's just say you're saying it's more superior than Arabic.
I didn't say it was more superior.
No, I said if.
Oh, okay.
If you're saying. Then what you do, Alex, is you say, okay, it's this particular thing that's in Chinese, that's not in Arabic. That's why I disagree with the fact that Arabic would be more superior in this regard, because we're making the claim. We're saying that Arabic is the best language to convey the final revelation and that's the claim. In order to then rebut the claim, you have to say, okay, but this language has this.
I can't.
No,
I don't know Chinese.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying.
The thing is, what about Taoism, for example? I mean, that's a very ancient religion, right?
Which one? Taoism.
It's the Chinese, you know, the sort of yin yang and all that,
Yes.
64 hexagrams. And that's very ancient, very beautiful, very poetic. Have you ever studied that and compared it with some of the ideas in Islam? I mean, it's very different, but it's its own animal, if you like.
Okay.
I don't know, I'm just curious. I mean, there's so much diversity. And to say this is it, and does it matter if not everyone becomes a Muslim?
And we're not claiming that if there's not any beauty or any other spiritual or otherworldly benefits you can get from other literature, that's not something that we're saying. But what we're saying is we're looking at comprehensiveness, and even as an example for example, it's not the Quran is the text, but the living example of the Quran will be the Prophet Muhammad. Because any scriptural texture, you need something which it applies to in your everyday life. And then we claim that example, that living example of the Quran, which is demonstrable, is the life of the Prophet Muhammad. So I would even say that to see if you find Quran at this precise moment to you to be inaccessible for whatever reasons, then looking into the life of the Prophet Muhammad would put that into context and something that something that you might be able to maybe better understand and then see the beauty of how the Quran is actually applied. Well, the Quran is the Quran, but the applicability of that is the life of the Prophet Muhammad.
I hear that, and I'm no doubt.
And just to add to that might actually be an answer to your point that you were going to say, which is you said, why can't we just experience everything?
Well, not everything, but it's okay for me to not
different
be a Muslim,
ideology,
right?
yeah. So what I would say is, why I would then say is, being a Muslim doesn't restrict, it actually opens doors. Yeah, it actually opens up your understanding, because now you're linked to God. So naturally, if you're linked to the divine, the one who's created everything, the one who's all powerful, then surely, rather than restricting your life, it should expand your life. Do you see? So where you might be thinking that, you know what, you're rejecting everything else and you're adhering to one thing, we're saying is that what it actually does is it actually liberates you, actually puts the world into its context, and it helps you achieve and attain more benefit from it with a more kind of, like they say, consciousness, different chakras and all that sort of thing.
I understand the focus is a way to live your life if it's not harming anyone, and it's a balanced religion and a balanced way of life, and it does good for you and your community and so on. I can't see any harm in it.
Yeah, and
it's a good focus, but it doesn't have to be on Islam.
It doesn't, but these metaphysical questions, who am I, where have I come from, what is the purpose of life, these are fundamental questions for our own psychological well-being as well. We need to have a purpose in life.
I understand.
And Islam, if you look at it in the textual perspective from the life of the Prophet Muhammad, it gives you guidance, it gives you the answers to these points, which unfortunately, it gives you a certain amount of, not closure, in fact it's what the brother is saying, liberation. It gives you a sense of purpose and meaning in your life. Whereas when you look for these other religions and ideologies and philosophies, you might get certain things from here or there that provides some level of comfort or understanding, but in a comprehensive or holistic way, there's nothing else that I can see, which is why I turn to Islam to answer those questions for me that way. And I did study some of these other Taoism and some of the writings of Jannah and these other scholars as well, and I didn't find anything as comprehensive and could answer and give me meaning in my life as that did. And that's what we're suggesting, that you go with it and I know you have with an open mind, but again, yeah, absolutely.
I'm not out to sort of say you're wrong or whatever, but it's just not right for me at the moment. I mean, who knows? I think
that's the word you just used, at this moment.
Well,
you never know what the future holds.
But isn't it the same for Taoism? Sorry. Maybe at the moment Taoism isn't the truth for you, but if you kept on going along with it, I spoke to some masters.
I mean, that's true for any religious ideology they look at, but again, it's this objective third point that we're talking about, that you look at something from an objective third point and you look at it for what it is rather than look at the adherers. I mean, Taoism, in terms of a religion that's followed by people and its historical kind of veracity, is not something that can be compared to the three major Abrahamic religions. And it's the fact that those three Abrahamic religions, we claim, have an integral connection, that shows that there's some sort of veracity to that as well. I mean, something being truthful and being useful and being universally followed, that is also a sign of its acknowledgement of its veracity as well.
It's not just about how many people are into the thing, it's about if it's true or not.
surely if it's a universal truth that it should be applicable to all of
A lot of
humanity.
people are conditioned to follow things that are not true. Come on.
Social conditioning is something that's there, I agree.
But then you have to analyze the claims that it's making, isn't it?
Can I ask just one question?
Yeah, sure.
What does it mean to you for me to become a Muslim, or anyone Muslim? Why is it important for you, for non-Muslims, to become Muslims?
Okay, so if we claim that this is the holistic way that a person can live their life, the best way they can, yeah, and we've been on this place and we're claiming that there is a heaven, there is a hell, then naturally it's of concern to us that believing this, that we also push, not push, but we present this message to other people and help them understand this so they can benefit from this world and in the hereafter also. It's more from a concern standpoint. It's not like a tally chart that we go tick one thing off and then yes, we've done it, we earn a point. Because at the end of the day, we're young also, we've got work tomorrow, we work at the same place and we're here, and you know, we have to get up early in the morning and go to work or whatnot. So again, for us to take time out is because we genuinely believe that it's affected our life and we've looked into it and we believe it to be true, and we have implemented it in our lives, and we have analyzed the claims, and we feel confident enough that we can present that to somebody else that's also rational, that will also be able to see that as well. That's pretty much.
And fundamentally,
the compassionate thing.
Yeah, the dissemination of the knowledge isn't for any materialistic or you know reasons. It's purely altruism. You know, there's nothing that we have as such to gain from standing here and doing this, but it is generally from our own experiences, and it's not an individual experience. I mean, if you look at generally the religion and what it promotes, these are ideals that we live by in our daily lives, and it's very in sync with human nature. That's why when you said about us and how we are, I found personally anyway that Islam kind of already acknowledges and validates those kind of feelings that we have as human nature. Many of the things that we find abhorrent, they're already present in Islam.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think the only thing is just coming out with an open mind, an open heart, and I would also say trying to take away any biases from how, because again, this is what my friend says here, that you don't judge anything by its adherents. You don't follow the religion. You don't judge or make assumptions about anything.
You present an Islam that's quite, what's the word, peaceful, where you kind of, your characters present that, so it filters through you, right? Where some other Muslims, they're quite warlike in their characters. So you get, it's interesting to hear, you have a more altruistic, whereas other Muslims, not all, percentage, it's a battle with the West, right? You know what I'm talking about. And so yeah, I don't know.
Alex, let me ask you a question. Are you aware of any Buddhist extremist group?
I've heard recently that
any names?
I can't think of the name off the top of my head.
Okay. Are you aware of any Hindu extremist group?
The Hashasins. The Hashasins.
No.
They back in the day, they smoked hash and kill the English out in.
They're mostly originating from Iran, yeah.
Oh, is it Iran?
Hashashin, that's where the word assassin comes from, yeah.
Yeah, well, I understand that. It's about the person.
No, the point that I was trying to say is, then I was going to ask you about any Jewish extremist groups and Christian extremist groups.
Well, there's always nutcases, right?
Exactly, but the point, Alex, I'm trying to say is the amount of atrocities that are currently taking place in India. Yeah, this is on a regular basis. It's absolutely ridiculous. Yeah. However, in the current media that we get, you're not going to be told of names like Hindutva. You're not going to be told about the Sanghis. You're not going to be told about the RSS. Maybe the RSS a little bit, depending where you've heard it from. But we're not hearing. Have you ever heard of the word Hindu terrorist said in the media in the last week or so?
No.
No. Buddhist terrorist?
No.
Or Jewish terrorist?